Good afternoon, fourth grade. We're going to continue reading in our text, Aset, Devoted Wife and Mother. And before we get started reading, we want you to answer the question, why is Covenant Place an important part of the story so far? All right, and if you remember from parallel teaching, you'll know that it is the place where Usher's box washed up on the shore, and he became a beautiful, fragrant cedar tree. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the focus question. It says, what motivates Aset to act the way she does? What do these actions reveal about her character and values? Our standard for today is, it says, I can make inferences about a character's qualities based on the decisions made in the story and use the text to support my inferences. Our vocabulary words today are immobile, which means not moving or motionless, instinct, which is an innate or typical pattern of behavior for animals, and 3, morose, which is sullen or ill-tempered. So this first picture matches morose, the baby is upset or ill-tempered. The second one is instinct. These animals are following their mother, that's their instinct. The last picture is immobile, the Statue of Liberty does not move. All right, go ahead and turn the page. And if we're reviewing our story, we know that Set threw Usher into the river in a box, and he floated down the river, and Aset chased after him, and she ran faster and faster to try to save him, but she couldn't. And the box that held Usher washed up on the shore of Kubna, and shrub grew all around it, and the box became this beautiful cedar tree that all the birds lived in. And the king even saw it from his palace, and the queen, wanted it, so they cut down the tree. And they brought it back to the queen. All right? And so now we're on page 4 that says back on the shore of Egypt. And we are looking for our cause and effect relationship. So we're looking for what happened or the effect, and then why did that thing happen or the cause. All right, let's get ready to read. It says back. And in the first paragraph, we're looking for what happened and then why did it happen. It says, back on the shore of Egypt, the goddess Aset lay desperate. Moons had passed, and still she remained immobile. But now she was woken from her grief-stricken stupor by the incessant calls, boo, 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 and again, boo, boo, boo. All around her, boo, boo, boo. She sat up, agog, at a flock of hoopoes with their colorful crests strutting in profusion. These were the birds who had nestled in the cedar that the king had cut down. They were mourning its loss. They had flown all this way in search of a substitute tree when they spotted Aset, and instinctively they were drawn to her. Instinctively they understood her grief matched theirs. We'll stop right there because we have a few things that happened. The first thing that happened was that Aset was awoken from her grief-stricken stupor by the incessant calls, boo, 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 and again, boo, boo, boo. Underline this sentence in your text. All right? And the first part of the sentence is our effect. She was awoken from her grief-stricken stupor. That means she woke up because she heard something, okay? The effect is that she woke up. And so the first part of the sentence you would write down in 1A. You would write, but now she was awoken from her grief-stricken stupor. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for 1B. Okay, and we want to know, why did she wake up? And if we go back into this sentence, it says the insistent calls boo, 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 and again boo, 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 all around her boo, boo, boo. So we know that the call of the birds woke her up. And we would write down the second part of the sentence in one beat. You would write by the insistent calls boo, 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 and again boo, 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 all around her boo, boo, boo. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the second effect. All right, then it tells us that these were the birds that were in the cedar tree that the king had cut down, and that they were looking for a substitute tree when they spotted Aset, and they were drawn to Aset. So our second effect is that these birds had flown looking for a substitute tree when they spotted Aset. Underline that sentence. The birds were looking for a substitute tree. All right, and in 2A, you're going to write down they, which is the birds, they have flown all this way searching for a substitute tree when they spotted Aset, and instinctively they were drawn to her. Press pause to write down the effect and play when you're ready for the cause. Okay, and we want to know, why were they drawn to her? And why were they looking for a substitute tree? There are two reasons why. The first reason is, why were they looking for a substitute tree? And that's because the king had cut down their tree. Okay, so underline this up here. These were the birds who had nestled in the cedar the king had cut down. They were mourning its loss. That you need to write that sentence in the first part of 2B. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the second cause. Another reason why they were drawn to Aset, not only were they looking for a new place to live, a new tree, but they were drawn to Aset because the text says they understood her grief matched theirs. They realized she was just as sad as them because of the tree. What they didn't realize is she was sad because she lost Aser, which became the tree. The birds didn't realize that that was the same thing, but they kind of felt that they were sad about the same thing. And so you're going to underline, they understood her grief matched theirs, and you're going to write that down in the second part of 2B. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. Right, we're in the second paragraph and we're looking for the next effect. The birds called boo, 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 and Aset stood boo, boo, boo. The birds took to the air and circled above her. Aset followed, and the procession moved east, a wavering line along the sands, a spiraling in the heavens. Aset sensed an urgency in the birds, and hope swelled in her heart. These birds were leading her to Aser. What could this mean? With each day her hopes grew till her heart was ready to shred. Okay, so we know that Aset followed the birds, and the sentence we could underline to support that is, the birds called boo, 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 and Aset stood. The birds took to the air and circled above her. Aset followed. Underline those two sentences. That's our third effect. And we're going to write those two sentences in 3A. You're going to write, the birds called boo, 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 and Aset stood. The birds took to the air and circled above her. Aset followed. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the cause. And we are thinking, why did Aset follow them? And if we go to that last paragraph, it says that she believed that the birds were leading her to Aser. That's why she followed them. So you need to underline the sentence, these birds were leading her to Aser. You need to write it down in 3B. These birds were leading her to Aser. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. Go ahead and turn the page. It says, "There at long last was the splendid palace of Kubna." Aset wondered, sure the box would be just past the wall, just round the corner, just under the eave. But the box was nowhere. Without warning, without preamble, reason finally coated Aset's tongue with a bitter salt. Usser was dead. Whether she found the box or not, he was dead. It was almost as though he was nearby, with his spirit telling her that, forcing her to understand. Aset found a large, smooth, warm rock in the courtyard. She sat and wept. But these were tears of acceptance and exhaustion. It was over at last. Okay, we'll stop right there. We know that our effect is that Aset arrived at Kubna. All right? And we would underline this first sentence that said, "There at long last was the splendid palace of Kubna." And the last sentence that says, "But the box was nowhere." Underline those two sentences and write both of them in box 4A. There at long last was the splendid palace of Kubna, but the box was nowhere. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the cause. And you should be thinking, well, why didn't they find the box? And if we go to the next paragraph, that's because Aset realized that Usser was dead. Underline the sentence, Usser was dead. And you're going to write that in box 4B. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the paragraph. The paragraph says, how does Aset end up at Kubna Place? And you need to talk about how the birds came up to her and their grief matched hers, and she felt like she should follow them because they were leading her to Usser. And it turns out that they led her to the place where he died, and she realized that and became very sad.